We've been through two back-to-back horrific hurricane seasons in 2020 and 2021, Hurricane Laura and Hurricane Ida, both bringing 150-mile-an-hour winds to the landfall in Lake Charles and Port Fourchon during the past year and a half at this point. So that's life-threatening, certainly very, very challenging to your properties in the coastal areas in particular, but not to exclude our friends in Central and North Louisiana. So my first advice is be prepared. Have a disaster plan in mind. Discuss it with your roommates, your significant other, your spouse, your children, all who would be affected by a decision to evacuate the premises and relocate to a safer area outside of harm's way. That evacuation plan should anticipate whether or not you'll lose power during the landfall of a hurricane and the effect that that would have on folks with health issues and challenges that would not tolerate living in 95-degree heat and 95% humidity in South Louisiana, as often happens in the aftermath of hurricane events. And if you are going to evacuate, be sure to bring with you your important documents, your insurance policies, your contact information for your agent, so that if you are damaged by the landfall of a hurricane, then you can start the claims process sooner rather than later. The sooner you start, the sooner you get an adjuster. The sooner you get an adjuster and get your payment that's due you, you can then go into the market and access contractor help to repair the damage to your property. Also, we urge folks to get with their agent or their insurance professional at this time of year. Go over all of your coverages. Know in particular what you're not covered for, such as a significant hurricane or named storm deductible. About a third of our policies in the state of Louisiana come with a 1/3 of the insured value, not of the damage caused by the hurricane, but your insured value, typically $200,000 of insured value for a home. A 5% named storm deductible means a $10,000 out-of-pocket expense before your coverage kicks in to pay for your damaged roof, the wind damage caused to your windows and other openings, etc. Those things come after you meet those payments for those things come after you meet your deductible in your policy, whatever that deductible is. Typically, it is from 2% to 5%, as I mentioned earlier. Another important aspect of hurricane season is the risk of flood. Even our friends in North Louisiana. Back in 2008, Hurricane Gustav made landfall south of Houma, came through Baton Rouge here, and then made its way up to the central and northeast parts of our state, bringing with it 2 days of 10-inch plus rainfall that ended up flooding hundreds of homes in central and northeast Louisiana. So be sure to access, if you have not already, the National Flood Insurance Program, benefiting our state more than any other state in America. We have collected more in payments for flood losses over the history of the program, going back to Hurricane Betsy in the mid-60s, hitting New Orleans and St. Bernard Parish and triggering an exodus from flood coverage of the major national property insurers. The National Flood Insurance Program was created to fill that void, and as I mentioned, has significantly benefited our state more than any other state. It is up for renewal. It comes with a new rating process called Risk Rating 2.0 that Congress and our delegation is united behind a alteration of that proposal, because for thousands of property owners, it will bring with it a significant rate increase for flood insurance. So, but regardless of that, and before you get to the amount of the cost of that coverage, you should get with a professional and access coverage for flooding events if you have not done so already. Know that a flood policy takes 30 days from after the time that you purchase it before it goes into effect. And that delay means you can't wait till the hurricane is on our doorstep to provide that coverage in South Louisiana. Those things are important. If any of it is beyond the comprehension or the ability of any of your viewers to get help in that regard, we're there to help. 800-259-5300. We have the tips that I just shared with you on our website at LDI, Louisiana Department of Insurance, .la.gov, 800-259-5300.
What's your recommendation as far as people documenting their homes and what they have currently?
Excellent point. Before evacuating, actually now, before a hurricane is actually heading our way, folks should walk through their homes with a cell phone, easy to do, taking pictures of all of their belongings, their valuables, their artwork, their carpeting, their furnishings, etc., their flat screen TV, because it's not just a wind damage or flood damage claim that will be important for. Fire is the other major catastrophe that threatens property owners all over our state and every other state for that matter. And in the aftermath of such a loss, a flooding loss, a fire loss, etc., it's so much easier to document and make a claim for the damage to your property if you have evidence of what was there before the fire or before the flood, such as a video or still pictures taken with a cell phone through your house in each room, documenting your assets as they stand undamaged before the event.
What type of recommendations do you have for people to minimize the risk at their homes?
Well, certainly fortifying your property, covering openings to your property, building or retrofitting to the new statewide building code that was passed in the aftermath of Katrina and Rita 15 years ago. And such code, the code is designed to accommodate the different risk levels for different folks around the state. For example, there's a coastal zone, there's a central zone, and there's a northern zone. Each one of them has a different level of protection required in building in those particular areas. So doing that or retrofitting to accommodate that, to reach that standard, is certainly worth the investment, if possible, for property owners around our state.
With the recent hurricanes we've had here, Ida, Laura, etc., what lessons have we learned as far as advice that you can give to people in the event of a hurricane when it comes to dealing with FEMA, dealing with their insurance company, and looking toward rebuilding?
Well, first off, FEMA is a federal program that in effect gives grants to folks who are damaged and have no insurance coverage in place to protect or to rebuild their property. In addition to that, what they typically do is they also make available SBA loans that offer money on a refinance of the property, but over a 30-year period of time. And all of that, frankly, focuses the importance of having flood insurance in place. Because if the event that causes your damage is flood, and you have flood coverage in place, as only 25% of our residences do in Louisiana, then typically the claim, as was experienced in the aftermath of the 2016 flooding event in Baton Rouge and Lafayette and the surrounding areas of those two cities, resulted in a payment of $90,000+ for damage caused by that flooding event. Grants given out by FEMA for uninsured damage was only $9,500. That difference was made up by those long-term SBA loans, low-interest loans, but what happens as a result of that is the biggest asset in a family's portfolio, typically, the equity in their home, is gone. Although they can rebuild the home, it will have no equity with the new higher mortgage that they are forced to put on their property in order to pay for the repair of that damage. So that's a first step that everyone should have in mind. Is emergency assistance is available, but it comes at a price, and that price is significant. The second thing is what I mentioned earlier. Make sure you have, wherever you are relocated to, the information to contact your agent and begin the claims process sooner rather than later. Also know that you have a duty and an obligation under your policy to minimize your damage. And what that means is if a tree fell on your home and created an opening in your roof, you have a duty, within reason, to cover that opening and prevent rainwater, subsequent rainwater, from getting inside the building any more so than has happened at the catastrophe event, during the catastrophe event, and minimize your damage. The expenses you would incur from a contractor, supplies to cover that opening, or a claim to make covered by your policy to get you reimbursement for such expenses. So sooner is better. Protect what you have, and know that if you can get your claim in ahead of time, ahead of the rest of the crowd, then you will be much advantaged in getting your property back together ultimately through the claims process, your payment being received earlier rather than later, and your accessing of help, contractor help, roofing help, being expedited versus delaying in that process.
In conclusion, a hurricane season lasts through the end of November. What are your final thoughts and recommendations to people?
Be prepared, know what your coverage is, may have a plan in place to evacuate if need be, taking with you your important documents to assist you in making a claim if you have a loss. Document what you have with your camera, walking through your cell phone camera, walking through your home, and get yourself and your loved ones out of harm's way, and then initiate the claims process as soon as you know that you have suffered damage, and file a claim with FEMA, as your local officials and state officials will make available to get to get whatever help is available to you through the federal government as well.
How can people get more information?
Through us, 800-259-5300, ldi.la.gov, 800-259-5300.